بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم رضي الله تعالى عنه وسرد التابعين وعلماء عاملين وآئمة أربع المجتهدين ومقلديهم إلى يوم الدين أما بعد. This the topic that we're discussing is centered around the annual fight, centered around the annual fight, the annual war, the back and forth, argumentative. And I basically believe that these issues only come up in order to draw people to have sides. At one point in time, this subject used to be the dividing factor between the Sunni community and the Salafi community, but this was before it was actually known the reality of the position. Most people in the West, I can't speak about around the world. Most people in the West, Islam is divided into two halves. You either fall under the Sunni slash Sufi category, or you fall under the Wahhabi slash Salafi category. It's either one or the other. We've created a third category, which is more so the middle path and following real tradition. A lot of our traditionalists that claim to be traditional scholars, they're not really traditional. They're more so like neo tradition. Now you got your R&B soul, where you got neo soul too. Well, these guys are like the new ones. These guys, they've created a type of Islam, a category of Islam that is most of their rulings, most of their behavior, most of their thinking, their fatwas, their studying of usuli principles is in order to make it Islam that fits under the thumb of the disbelievers. Now, you could read any Islamic book all the way up until colonialism started. This was never a problem. As soon as colonialism started, you found all of the Muslims, they didn't have a balanced position. They started like the argument about what's called Muslim clothing and non-Muslim clothing, right? The new neo-traditionalists, they will argue and say there's no such thing as Islamic clothing. What is wrong with you, right? And why are they arguing that? Because when the colonizers and the settlers invade the land, what is sometimes some of the most apparent things that you know that somebody's changed your tradition is the clothing. Women's ideas, women's attitude, right? At one point in time, a family was able to have, the man was the head of household. He was able to call the shots. The family were acting, in favor of what he's calling. Most arguments and bickering and arguments weren't over who should have the role in the family. I feel left out because you're making all the decisions as a man, and I feel powerless as a woman. This wasn't traditional family fitna. This has come along with the embracing of European culture and idea. Now, in a later date, we'll get into a particular book that narrates the history of the Jamaat that Sheikh Muhammad Sharif put together, called Zaman and Nasara. It plays a big role in what's happening to us. But included in that book, Zaman and Nasara, there's a portion of it that is the fatwa that the Qadi, his name was Mudi Abdul, he was the judge that gave the verdict when the Christians had started to invade Hausaland, what the Muslims were to do. And those four choices still stand. As you get into it, you understand that you're not supposed to live comfortably under the jurisdiction of those who disbelieve. What's happening to many of the Muslims? We are comfortable living under the jurisdiction of disbelievers. That which entails later on make us have to create new rules. Why is polygyny such a big fuss? Right? And you know what's sad about polygyny? It's sexualized. I can't speak about the rest of the world, but I know in our community, our women, our mentality, even with men, everything is sexualized. When you get in polygyny, it's like, oh man, high five, you're gonna be getting jams, right? That's how people be acting. No, polygyny's bigger than that, bro. Your first marriage is no different from the second and the third one. The only difference is it's a different person. But our mentality, because this is like the slave lock that you got on our way of thinking, as first we sexualize everything. Everything is sexualized. Yeah, she know that rule and I call her to the bed. Yeah. We over-sexualize everything. And our women, they be like, well, I'm going to give him so much, he ain't got time for a new wife. Then you hurt, your feelings is hurt, you ready to jump off the bridge when you find out he over there yamming just as much as yam with you. Right? Because the mind, our mentality, we don't think like Muslims. And so when you don't think like Muslims, you think like a disbeliever, then you get the result of what you see, Islamic, pseudo-Islam in America. Look at the whole concept, the whole thing we talked about, the voting thing, right? Remember the sister that just ran, where she run for Congress, State House, whatever position she took. What's the first thing she started talking about when she got in office? Gay marriages, gay people. Islam doesn't condone that. We're conditioned to embrace seeing people practice the wrong thing, even though we know the right thing exists. That's how we are. No, her talking about catering to gay people, that was her way of giving bay'ah, like, I'm with you. Her putting on a khimar was a symbol to draw Muslims in and think that they can get in, the easy way, this way. That's all it was. So you have all of these symbolic things of Islam, right? People who learn fiqh through madhabs now, they're now becoming like the new bourgeois, right? Us, on the other hand, the elite bourgeois, they hate that I'm doing exactly what I'm doing, which is more like a poor righteous teacher mode. I run around, I'll teach you the Akhdari, I'll teach you Umdatul Bayan, I'll teach you Maliki fiqh. They make big money off of this stuff. Big bucks. I had one brother really just come at me, talk to me all sideways. I think I started explaining, my journey through dealing with, teaching and all that stuff. It's been one hell of a journey. I'll say that, right? But the bottom line is, it's big money in this stuff. You're not supposed to be black and learn usul and learn Arabic and learn a madhab. You ain't supposed to do that. You're supposed to remain ignorant, because why? The next man could just come in and make a whole bunch of money off of y'all. You see what I'm saying? But the problem is with our people is, it ain't right unless somebody else does it. You see what I'm saying? That's the difference. That's the difference when you look at Medina and you look at now. In the black Muslim communities, you're not validated unless it comes from somebody else or somewhere else. If it don't come from somebody else and somewhere else, and that somebody can't be from amongst you, it has to be from somebody else. He can't talk about your agenda. Even look at how everybody's apolitical. We think like secularists, right? We be like, listen, we got bigger problems other than Islam. We can't learn fiqh and aqidah all day, akhi. I don't understand. Islam is a whole system. If Islam wasn't a whole system, then why do we learn how to go to the bathroom? Right. You're supposed to learn that when you were a kid, right? So we think. Why does Islam tell you what hand to eat with and what hand not to eat with? What hand to wipe your booty with? Think about it. You don't get that in Christianity. You're not getting that. So what's happening? A lot of these things are being disregarded. And so what happens is, it's a statement that the Shaykh makes in Bayan al-Wujub al-Hijra. He says that he gives the ruling about the Muslims living in Dar al-Harb, right? The land, the abode of war, or Bilad al-Kufr, whichever words you want to use. It's both synonymous. He says that it's impermissible for them to reside there. In another book called Masa'il Muhammad, He says that it's impermissible to live in a land where kufr is dominant or bid'ah is dominant, right? So you're supposed to leave, right? Establish your own. Now, in both books, he gives the exception to the rule. If you see the ability to establish Islam, then it is incumbent on you to remain in that, in that region and spread Islam. This is not even a topic of discussion no more. Most people, they thought they put the lights out of that years ago. Most people are, they have you afraid of, death, dying, jail, and everything else as if it's the akhirah, right? As if it's the afterlife. Oh, watch what you say. They be listening. Bro, they listening to you anyway. They don't even need a warrant. You get on the phone. Like, it's going to make much of a difference. They're listening. Every device that's in here, any device that's in here that is a wireless device, there is a way that the military can turn your phone on and record you. If you don't believe me, pay attention to all the mobsters, mobsters and gangster movies. What kind of phones they have? Flip phones. Flip phones. And when they have a major meeting, what do they all do? They bring a bucket, put your phone in there. And they take the phone so far outside, right, that you can't, it's so far away because they can only hear but so far, right? Now, these things are devices. If you got a laptop or iPad or anything like this, or iPad, this can be used to view who's in here right now. That's why people started closing up their laptops. And if you notice, everything got dual cameras now, front and back, even on computers. Why does a computer need a camera front and back? When you're sitting in front of the computer, what do you need it for the back for? So all of these things now are being used. A new culture is developed. It's a new way to monitor. Most of your imams are snitches. They work for the kuffar. They equipped you to fight. If you don't know anything about the Black Panthers and the COINTELPRO, they reenacted it since 9/11. COINTELPRO is to break up movements, and it's used as a method of espionage to spy and keep tabs, but it's also used to provoke fights. You'll have somebody come in here, everybody praying subtle. You got the one guy coming in here, we don't care if you're praying cup, I'm just using this as an example. He comes in, he's praying cup. Everybody's like, all right, alhamdulillah. He like, nah, subtle's the wrong way. But wait a minute, everybody in here is praying subtle, what's going on? Now, it's not like he's coming in breaking up kufr, right? If you ever notice, all of the issues that we argue about, they're not arguments that's connected to kufr. Those things that are connected to kufr, our leaders always prompted us to abandon it. Oh man, it's not that serious. You don't need to worry about it. Brothers be ready to lock and load over praying subtle and coved, but somebody could say literally, Master Fard Muhammad came in the person of a man. We gotta be cool, brothers. We can't be doing that. We giving them dawah, We gonna go there. What's they big holiday thing? Savior's Day. Right? These type of things. They do little things like this. Got sisters going to blows, throwing fist fights on whether or not you gotta wear black or not. And you have whole fist fights. You be like, yo, what's up with this? Why is all this? This type of Islam. Knowledge is not supposed to do this to you. Right? They pay people for that. They pay brothers, brothers be in the ranks selling drugs and things like that. He get knocked. I want you to tell Imam Khalil, when he give you a ride home, I want you to slide this pistol under his seat, and then we'll pull him over, and you did a good deed, and we'll drop your charges. COINTELPRO. So the same effects that it has with those things, some of these issues of controversy, you see it divides. Now, at first, I wouldn't have believed this because I would have believed that, the Salafis versus Sufis, we know that's a known fight. That's like Bloods and Crips. You put them together, you know it's going to go down, right? But here it is. You have a neutral party such as ourselves, and what happens? I differ with the mainstream. We differ as a Jamaat. We differ with the mainstream group of Sunni Muslims and we get labeled under the category of being Wahhabi Malikis. Exactly. Exactly. So this is what's happening now. So what happens is sometimes, like people like myself and other people, they be like, man, I ain't gonna get into it. I'm not gonna entertain the argumentation and so on and so forth. And then the longer you remain silent, the more the people in the community becomes confused because they want to know what's going on. Because Islamic arguments now is like a tennis match. You watch the ball go back and forth, back and forth. Then the ball finally gets on somebody, you're like, yeah, that's right. That was a good move. That's right. That's what I'm talking about. And that's what happens. So the more that you see American Muslims approach the tradition, I put that in quotes, you start to see there's a certain curriculum in line and certain arguments in line for you to argue with. Like, for instance, Mawlid is just one of the few arguments, right? What do we fight about every year in Ramadan? Moon sighting. Now, once upon a time, back in the day, the fight of moon sighting was whether or not you took one from the United States or whether you took one from Saudi. Now, I'm going to fine tune and drop in there and zoom in even more and give you more of a detailed argument because now there's a new argument. All right? Now, it's supposed to be traditional. Traditionalists, they only give you so much. They only give you so much. And so then what they do is they misguide you and play on your emotions, on the average grassroots, everyday, common people's emotions. How do they do that? Well, we got to be unified, right? All of the people would start, yeah, unity, yeah, we got to be unified. So at first, Saudi was the only devil, and you had America, right? Well, people are wisening up. They even getting a little more smarter than you actually think they are, especially black people. They're like, oh, hold up. There's a limitation on how far we can consider the entire country and where we want to take a sighting from. No, one sighting is good enough for the whole, for everybody in America. Well, if it's good enough for America, then why we just don't keep going to Saudi? If I'm taking California, only way a couple, just go a little further and go to Saudi. So, okay. Well, no, see, this is what happened. And so what happened? The big fight just splintered into some more fights. So once you figured out what's going on, now you've got more in-house fighting because it's like, look, man, I live in Illinois. I'm not taking a Louisiana sighting. You see what's happening? Then and this is what you're starting to have. You have people that lives in their city. People are going out now, learning how to do it. But what they do is, what I notice about the pseudo neo-traditionalists, they make everything so scientific that it's supposed to discourage you because I'm talking about us, we're just supposed to be so ignorant and we don't have that much education, because we live in poor neighborhoods and we don't eat tofu every day, right? So we got poor education. We don't know what moon sighting's about no more. Like, I never forget one shit we was talking about moon sighting. He's like, the sighting the moon is very tricky, Imam Khalil. I'm like, dude, I've been looking for years and we've been seeing it. You got to be careful. Moon sighting is very tricky. Okay, all right. Right? I'm glad we didn't have this conversation in public. God, it'd have been even worse. I was just like, whatever, man. So so these things. So then we'll have a dialogue. I was sitting, Shaykh, having a dialogue, and we was talking about a Maliki hukum, a Maliki ruling or something. And he said, Khalil, you're really Maliki, huh? Just pray with your arms down. I'm like, I don't know if it'd be insulted or, taking that as a praise. Like, what do you mean by that? Right? Because most people don't take us serious. Like you got the whole Ijazah scheme. That's a whole nother scheme in itself too. Ijazah scheme it's another scheme in itself. When we go over and start, matter of fact, I'm going to talk a little bit about it tomorrow in the lecture tomorrow. How you passing down knowledge, right? You ever notice that everybody argues about Isnad and Senate and having this connection to the Shaykh, but nobody's giving none? You ever notice that? We'll argue about, the Shaykh got the highest chain of Bukhari. And I sat down and read Bukhari with him, but you still ain't got no chain, huh? Because, if you're just talking about sama'in, just sitting down, listening to it be recited, you get ijazah for that. You get ijazah for that. You may not be a specialist. You know, you may not have finished the commentary and so on and so forth, but you were present. If a 5-year-old hears a hadith narrated with his chain, going back to the Prophet ﷺ from the person who's reciting it, he receives that same chain. A 5-year-old. So we're gonna say our 5-year-olds, our black 5-year-olds isn't like everyone else, you know, all over the world. A 5-year-old. So as you, like I said, you know, as you engage more in learning and studying, you start to see the games connected to it, and that is set up systematically to keep us in the predicament that we're in. How do you think everybody, honestly, sister, I'm gonna ask you this question. How did y'all ever learn about getting a khula?
My companion.
All right, your companion. And where she say she learned it from?
Her husband.
And where her husband say he learned it from?
I don't know, from the masjid, I guess.
And from the masjid, right? Okay. Name me some of the reasons why people can get khulas.
Because they tired of y'all.
Huh?
Because we tired of y'all.
Tired of y'all, right? Okay. Anybody ever learn the ruling about a woman can request that her husband never take another wife?
Yeah, I heard that.
I know some of y'all ain't old enough. Y'all ain't old enough. I've been around 20, 25 and still counting. 25 in the clip. I remember that was real big. You go to
You couldn't do that.
no.
Put that in the
Hey, that was we started learning that later. But guess what everybody lived on? You gotta get your wife permission to get another wife.
yeah.
She can tell you not to get one.
Also in the contract.
Yeah, you gotta own up to it, Sheikh. It's Sharia. You gotta do it, and you know she can. Some of this stuff actually has some connections,
So if
right?
if you looking for marriage and you find somebody you like, right?
Right.
And say, for example, you say, okay, I don't want to have another wife. I want another wife.
Okay.
And you do get a contract. Is that contract valid?
No.
Oh, dang.
I mean, you look like a bad guy because you lied.
Because like I'm saying, if he does get, say like 2 years later, he turns around and says that he would like to have.
Let me ask you this. Now I want you to think like this. You got to think a little deeper. You have a job. You pray 5 times a day.
Right.
Your job says I only want you to pray 3. I want you to put that in writing. What happens when it's time for the 4th prayer?
I'm praying.
You pray, right?
I'm praying.
You broke your contract.
I'm praying.
You broke your contract.
That contract was out to begin with.
So what makes you think the same thing can happen with your wife?
So does that mean they vow for divorce after that?
She can file for whatever divorce she wants. But my bottom line is that we're learning this from our leaders. Our imams is teaching us this. And it destroys more homes than it keeps together. You better off just saying, look, this is what it is. This is what Islam teaches you. Because as a new Muslims come into Islam and they ready to accept anything you say. They're like, yo, Allah said that in the Quran? Yo, that's what it is then. New Muslims come in just like that, straight like that. How did everybody stop eating halal?
They listen to that and keep eating it.
Yeah, where'd you hear that from?
Somebody told me that.
And who they hear that from?
I never ate
It goes back to the masjid. So my point of mentioning all this is that our fights are already pre-planned for you to fight already. You fighting over women, you fighting over food, you fighting over money, you fighting over everything except Allah's deen. And you get fights for that too.
Cotton swipers.
Cotton swipes. So these things are happening. And there's people that live by it. You ever see the aggressive, angry Muslim that be in the community? Like Imam said, the wife can request a divorce, and that's what it is. And they beat you up over that stuff. Right? This is but my point in mentioning this is learning these things causes separation. All right? So, okay, we got to the point now. I don't know about other places, but I know here, you can come in here, we pray Sadl here. Hey, you come in and pray Cup with 2 Taslim, ain't nobody gonna bother you. Can you say that for other places? No. You know what's the difference here versus other places? Education. What you're being taught, how you're being taught, right? What's the emphasis? What's the thing that the focal point of emphasis? Why are we having classes, that are equipping people to argue? But people don't argue for real things in the Sharia. They'll argue for things that are given based off of the the statements of the ulama, right? So I'm gonna shift. I'm kind of like using this discussion to open your mind to it. Now, one more time, the subject of the Mawlid, Rabi'ul Awwal. I love the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. If you don't practice the Mawlid, that does not mean that you don't love Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. The Sahabas never practiced the Mawlid. This is what our Medinan scholars, it's like, we ain't got nothing to do with that. Sahabas never practiced this thing. Never. Right? And so with that being said, then why would we look at another Muslim sideways if they don't practice it? You have to really zoom in and think about what we're actually saying and doing. Is it safer to do something that the Sahabas did or abandon what they did? That was a question. Okay. Is it safer to leave things that they didn't do or do what they didn't do? Leave it. So why are people looking at those who don't practice Mawlid sideways with three heads? Because the original argument, in my belief, is that it was geared up to cause friction between two groups of Muslims. Secondly, it was two groups. They labeled these two groups the so-called Sunni Sufi versus the Wahhabi Salafi. This is where the argument came. But now you have traditional Sunnis that follows the Islam, pre-colonial Islam, before colonialism. You couldn't find out that they hold the same position too. So this is where the argument comes in. Yes.
Did all this separation start after the Prophet died?
Yeah, a lot of separation. Some stuff started while he was alive, but it was easily stomped out, and it became rules. The first. Well, anything with if you ever like study like societies, whenever you have foundational groups, and they establish something. It don't matter whether it's a city, a village, a company, a business. You always have that. And as the second generation comes, the younger generation, you have those who are what you would probably label as a fundamentalist that hangs on to the fundamentals of the founder, or someone who's called very innovative and he tries to incorporate new ideas, and somewhere down the line it gets lost and you start something totally different, right? I can give you a this is why you teach your children now. This is why you teach your children now. You build them up on principles. See, a lot of times we don't understand because a lot of us, we take from our parents, our parents before us, right? And what I mean is, you the child, I'm the parent, shut up and listen to what I'm saying. You're not molding it. It was go to school, get good grades, and shut up, and don't come home and back talk me. Right? Islam is totally different. Islam, I tell you, we talked about how Islam tell you how to use the toilet. Right? Everybody's method of potty training is different. Matter of fact, to be honest with you, me, with a man with many kids, and then seeing younger people how they do it, the age for somebody getting potty trained is getting much older.
Right.
Dudes gonna be getting potty trained at 5 by the time when they've got grandkids. They gonna be 5 years old getting off the potty. See, you see what I'm saying? Tradition loses, and one of the biggest fallacies of Black Americans, especially Black American Muslims, we throw away tradition and we don't have an idea and accept our reality and create a new culture and create that culture using Islam. We created a culture. If you look at the NOI and Wafdi Muhammad and the guys, they created their own culture to the reality of what they were following. You couldn't be part of the Bean Pine clan wearing a hoodie, you know what I'm saying, and jeans. You had to wear a suit and tie. You had to have a clean face. How many NOI members you see? Grown men don't got a beard. You see what I'm saying? They set a uniform. And guess what? The children that are in it. I think the latest numbers, and I could be wrong, but the latest numbers I heard that the NOI is probably about 15,000 strong. Now that's bigger than what most people. We talking about 15,000 where they acknowledge their leadership. Now all these other groups, they don't acknowledge anything. Matter of fact, mostly everybody's broken up to like churches. You know, in the concept, a church concept. Oh, this masjid got 500 people. This masjid, they call you a mega masjid after what? About 1,000 people go to your masjid? Like, yo, that's a mega church. That's a mega masjid, I mean. Right? Anything under 100 people is a storefront masjid. Right. A mega is considered a mega masjid. So, what happens is you start falling in categories, and when those categories start becoming popular, your mind begins to be trained in the category type thinking. Now back to the Mawlid. So now you have this group in the middle and saying, hey, we follow madhabs too. We're traditional. We read hadiths. We do this. We do all this stuff. We didn't find any of these actions to be from amongst the Prophet ﷺ or the people of the Salaf. Right? The other argument is, well, there's a bunch of, like hadiths and ayats that you can kind of like pull and kind of like try to get to it. You know what I mean? To try to say that it was something that happened. But when was the first time the Mawlid was actually instituted? The Fatimid dynasty, they were the Shia in Iraq, spreading in Northeast Africa. There were the people that men like Ibn Abi Zayd used to write books against. In some of our Muqaddimah books where you say, it'd be like, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa alihi, right? He's best be up. You're right. Gosh. Sahbihi, right? That was for the Rafida. That was the piss the Shia off. That was how you made yourself a distinction. It's a nice dua, don't get me wrong, but there's hidden jewels in that dua. And a lot of that was written for those Shia in the Fatimid, right? You ever hear somebody be like, well, he was what is it? He was Hanafi and fit, but he prayed Sadl. He was Shia. He was Shia. There's no Hanafi. You can't be Hanafi and Shia.
They say it's a lot of Hanafis in Northern Africa.
A lot of them used to be. A lot of them used to be Shia. The Hanafi madhab did spread. Don't get me wrong. It did spread.
They say like Algeria, places like that. They said it was over there. They said still a lot of Hanafis.
So, question.
Mm-hmm.
No, I've heard of some of the stuff they did in the Mawlid.
Oh, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about that.
I mean, told convinced to dance and
We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about that.
From that's what I don't.
I'm about to bake the cake.
I'm bringing the candles.
Now look at the distraction. I don't know if I had posted it in the group, but there was an article that somebody had wrote on what was it, Huffington Post? What's that joint called? The little Huffington Post, right? About the Mawlid. So he talked about it. He actually tried to be objective. He gave a neutral position up until he started talking about Saudi. So what he said was, Saudi, they celebrate their prince's birthday, but why can't you basically celebrate the Mawlid? See, this isn't that type of thinking. We need to be Muslim and we think deeper than that. It's based on Allah, the Messenger of Allah, sallallahu, right? And the ijma. That's what it's supposed to be based on. Not if, Saudi do it, why we can't do it? You understand what I'm saying? So we've seen some ridiculous stuff in the name of Rasulullah sallallahu. All right. So with the Mawlid is supposed to mark the historical era or the era of where the Prophet sallallahu was born. There's not a real exact date. He was born in the year of the elephant. Some people say he was born on the 12th of Rabiul Awwal. There's khilaf about it. Some people say some real harsh things. So the most neutral position is we know he's born during the month of Rabiul Awwal, right? The exact date, Allahu A'lam. They mentioned hadiths about the Prophet ﷺ fasted on his birthday. No problem. There's narration that say when you fasted on Monday, fast on Monday because I was born on a Monday. No problem. A Mawlid. What exactly are we talking about with a Mawlid? I think the problem is the understanding is commemorating versus celebrating. All right. Now, us coming from the West, one of our traditions is we love to party for birthday party. We have birthday parties. You got your first cake, your sweet 16. You know, then you get deflowered on prom night, and so on and so forth. We got some real raunchy, nasty traditions. You think about it, right? We got some real nasty traditions. Prom night. We encourage our sons and daughters to have sex on prom night. Like, yo, some parents be like, yeah, son, I got you a room for the night. Who's your date? Right? Well, you can't bring him up here because I'm recording. Where's his pops at? Take him to his daddy.
Yeah, sorry.
Take him to his daddy.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, these type of things, these type of things are what's happening and what's prompting us, and we're fighting for these things. Like, I ain't playing, you ain't gonna change my culture. I got the right to wear whatever I want to wear, and I got the right to do this, and I got the right to do that, right? These things are happening. This is what's happening. It's affecting us. So when you go back to the Mawlid, I think one of the first problems is commemorating versus celebrating. Celebrating, we turn up. We know how to celebrate, right? That's why I really don't get down with the goofy Sufis. I can't get down with the disco lila. I knew how to get down in Jahiliyyah. I can't do it. Plus, I was a Pentecostal Christian. I ain't gonna hold y'all. That joint sent me in PTSD mode. Like, whoa. I've seen Victor circles, and I'd be like, nah, I'm good. I done been in church where people get. I'm cool. I'm good. May Allah reward y'all. Vertical all figure. I'm not dealing with it though. You see what I'm saying? So, but at the same time, we know how to turn up. So what's going to happen? Think about it. In the hood, I don't care nobody say. In the hood, if you live anywhere, I see the flyer. Nobody puts out flyers for parties like people from the Caribbean. I'm sorry. Could you imagine a Mawlid like the Labor Day parade in Brooklyn? Could you imagine a Mawlid? Now remember, everybody was criticizing them in New York. What's the I ain't gonna mention his name, but they did the joint in the Coliseum in Queens. You remember? They had the big party. Then they had one in London. In London, in I think Wembley Stadium or something like that. Now you imagine black people getting that. You'll be lit. He be like, man, the picture alone got me wanting to go. You be sitting there trying to practice your bobo. Get ready. What do you think is going to happen with Mawlids? It's just a matter of time. It just keeps right on going. You're going to have a Mawlid. You're going to have a birthday cake. You're going to have women jumping out with niqabs on, stripping out of the cakes and stuff. Right? It's just going to get bucked. It's going to get lit. And most of the people that's involved, they're ignorant. They're ignorant of the Sharia. One thing I've learned about this, just observing people of knowledge. The more knowledgeable the person is, the less he engages in nonsense. Right? In our tradition, we believe like if we know, we can argue whether it's permissible or not, we good. But a real knowledgeable person to be like, man, I ain't engaging in that. Mashallah, all right, I got something I got to do, y'all. I'll see y'all later, inshallah. Meanwhile, the knowledgeable people who's supposed to be knowledgeable that can argue whether it's halal or haram, they turning up doing stuff they ain't got no business doing. And this is why you got Islam the way it is. This is why you have Muslims going to clubs, right? Well, I'm not actually doing, the clubbing. I'm not drinking. I'm just there. So, these are the guys. But the real people of knowledge, his knowledge of narrations may not even be as extensive as that person who's in the club. But guess what? He's practicing what he know. He like, I'm cool. I can't be here. And he walks off. This is why Imam Malik made the statement that al-ilm laysa aktharu riwayah, right? Knowledge is not a whole bunch of narrations. In this city, everybody's a walking hadith. But what it is, like he said that it is what's the word? To be given. Khud, not khud. Yeah, khud. It's given, and knowledge is hidayah given to the person. When you have the ability not only to know the knowledge, but to act on the knowledge. So now what you have is a bunch of people walking around with a bunch of narrations. They're narratives, right? I've seen a brother, I know a brother that, you know, from North Philly was a dope fiend. This boy had the best recitation I ever heard. Right? I mean, you like, SubhanAllah. How many lie? He got himself together. Don't get me wrong, you know, it's just a matter of time. But I seen him, I didn't treat him no different. You see what I'm saying? But the bottom line is that they have that textual information. Do they have the guidance? Guidance only comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's the other side that no one ever teaches you with regards to knowledge, right? When you fear Allah, Allah increases you in your understanding. Most of us think our knowledge caps off at how many sheikhs we studied at. You can study with just one sheikh and be more knowledgeable than someone that studied with 1,000. Because why? You're practicing what you know, and Allah gives firasa, that insight. That insight. So anyway, so with the Mawlid, they're celebrating the birth of the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet ﷺ being born is an excellent thing. Beautiful. Excellent thing. He's the greatest of humanity. All of these things you learn that. You don't just learn that in Rabiul Awwal. You learn that from the time you become Muslim. I loved the Prophet ﷺ before I even knew what a Rabiul Awwal was. I used to cry because I couldn't say Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam properly. I used to be hurt. I used to be like, say Sallallahu, I couldn't get it. It took me almost 2 years to get it right. I was happy I was a happy man, right? I was about to say the wrong thing. I was a happy man. I was running around, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, right? Then I got around Muslim, like, man, you ain't always got to say it.
Stop.
That started making me look at him like kind of sideways, like, what? Like, bro, you don't know, I went through the struggle trying to learn how to say Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And you tell me I ain't got to always say it? Okay, whatever. Right? But this is what you see. And so, most people, if you didn't have any knowledge of the Prophet ﷺ, of course you would think Rabiul Awwal was the only time that you could commemorate the Prophet ﷺ, his just due. Giving a just due and commemorating Rasulullah is by following his sunnah. There's no other way you're going to get around it. Ibn Umar, the son of Umar ibn Khattab, he used to irritate, he used to be like, he used to follow the Prophet ﷺ so much that after he died, Aisha got frustrated and asked him, why do you circle this tree all the time when we here? Now you got to understand why she looked at him like that, because if she didn't see Prophet ﷺ do this and didn't know why Umar was doing this, she'd have said something like, what kind of innovation are you practicing? This is how they were. They weren't trying to figure that out to point out your fault. They wanted to make sure that the sunnah was pure, because they know that they were the carriers of the sunnah, right? She asked him. He said, I don't know. I just knew that the Prophet ﷺ did it. That's all. Nothing more, nothing less. All right? So now you get into that whole concept of commemorating versus celebrating. Commemorating is something as simple as saying, yo, we need to read more Sirah during the month of Rabiul Awwal. Not that we don't read Sirah outside of that. We need to increase in our salawat on the Prophet ﷺ during Rabiul Awwal. Not that you don't do salawat on the Prophet ﷺ outside of that, but many of us, we're what do you call that? People of moments. We're people of moments. Think about it. When Christmas is going on, what happens with people with Christmas? They get more charitable. They feel more charitable, right? And if they're somewhat pseudo-religious, they feel more Jesus-like. Hey, youngins, come on, y'all. It's both of y'all. Y'all both guilty. And it's from my household. It's from Ahlul Khalil. See? Anyway, so, you know, they feel the urge and the necessity to get more in that spirit. Thanksgiving does the same thing. Right? Thanksgiving makes some black people more conscious. I ain't eat nothing because you think the Indians eat on all that? The Indians enslaved you, so don't use that as a rebuttal. But I get the point. We don't commemorate and celebrate the Indians getting slaughtered, but that ain't why I don't celebrate Thanksgiving. I don't celebrate Thanksgiving because it ain't got nothing to do with Islam. I'm Muslim. I ain't messing with it, right? That'll probably be another argument in about another week if it ain't started already. But the bottom line is, commemoration and celebration, we don't know how to separate the two. Celebration, people baking cakes, you know, having big dinners, right? You know, having it where men and women are mixing. You know, women getting all dressed up, beautifying themselves, probably wearing perfume, got the big old eyelashes on. You know how sisters do, especially here in Philly. I ain't never seen a group of people that can beautify niqab. Yo, y'all got it, hands down. I seen it all, right? And as I watch the younger women, it just cracks me up. you know, with the whole nightingale blouse that they be having, the what y'all call them A-lines with scruffles and all that stuff. I like, man, what the heck is this damn thing that they wearing, right? Tabarruj, hey, tabarruj. The concept is you're supposed to avoid tabarruj. No, we figured out a way to Islamicize tabarruj, right? You know what I'm saying? She got these big old she got a whole niqab on. The joint look like a like one of them ski masks, right? She got the two circles, but she makes sure the circles is real big so everybody can see her eyeshadow. You know, and then she got lashes on. Them big $5.99 Korean store of Northfield Ridge Avenue joint. Bling, 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 bling. Right? You're like, yo, sis, what's up with you? She got a little earring in her eye. Everything she's doing is expose herself. Right? This is what's happening. So, what do you think is all going to be at the Mawlid? Can you imagine? Do you see our women at the Eid? Do you see how women be at the Eid? How many lot? Not at mansion. He's a funny boy. Not. He shot out all the way, Shaykh, to that one. But you ever see them Eid? What was that? What was her name? Ahmed, we first seen her. We called them Amina Keys. You remember Alicia Keys? Remember our first album cover where she had the little hat on tilted to the side? Shorty had on the stilettos. Yo, we got out. Here we are coming straight off of New York. We look like some travelers. We covered all old Timbs on, dusty Timbs, rolled up pants legs, book bags. Like, yo, we just here to pray. We didn't know y'all party like this in Philly. We like, what? Damn. SZA got out. She got out some kind of limo type joint. Stepped out and started walking. She had theme music, bro. And, yo, when she was walking, you would have thought the ground was lighting up with every step that she took. We out of place. We felt like bums. We felt like straight bums. We sitting there like, damn. But I was done. I knew Philly had his own style when I seen the brother in the pink mink with a pink thobe on, with a pink Kango, and them sunglasses with his gator shoes on, going to Juma. I was done. I was like, man, I can't dress no more. These guys got it. He had his style. He came through. But can you imagine a Mawlid? That's all I keep saying. If we did Eid like this, could you imagine a black group dhikr? I ain't talking about Tijanis. I love hearing the dhikr too. I ain't talking about Tijanis. Can you imagine a black man dhikr? Anybody ever heard of them nasheeds from the Fukara? Yo, they got some bad nasheed singers, right? But what's the name? What's the sheikh down there in South Carolina? Sheikh Faye. Some of his boys, man, they nice with it. They got some nasheeds, you know, and they doing the Arabic. The Fukara, some of the Fukara's people, they join, they be singing. So when the sisters get up there and start singing, remind me of gospel music. I'm like, nah, I'm cool. I can't get down with that, right? But I was listening to one of them nasheeds and Sheikh Faye. The boys were singing that. They was reciting that joint. Yo, you talk about in love. I was like, man, he was like, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. I'm like, oh my God, this boy's bad. Sister got up there, started saying, man, turn this crap over, man. I just couldn't take it. It joke about me in church, man. But anyway, all I want to say one more time, can you imagine a Mawlid like this? This joint will be lit, so lit. Yo, they will have fundraising dinners. Back in the day, some of the old community, especially Walter Muhammad community, they used to have jazz concerts. Some of them still have them now in the masjids, right? Can you imagine the fundraising Mawlid, right? They used to have some of them old groups come and sing too. So can you imagine that? We gonna invite Drake. We're gonna get Kevin Gates to start rapping. Kevin Gates. He Muslim with the cross in the middle of his head, that's right. But Kevin Gates don't need no platform. He don't need no platform. Because he's ignorant. He ain't doing a little learning. Dudes need to kidnap him, bring him to Philly for a little while, then give him the hop, and then send him back on his way. Yo, I would prefer it to be Salafi than say some of the crap he be saying, him and his wife. I be like, yo, who where? But anyway, that's a whole nother discussion in itself, right? Now, I'm going to mention a few things. I put together this discussion on this, and I don't want to drag it out any longer. So, with the Mawlid, some people they do Mawlids where they have men and women mingling. The women are dressed up, they're not covered properly. You know, they're on the men's side with the men instead of women. You know, separating. Yes, separating sexes is an Islamic thing. It's not a Salafi thing, right? Where we have a balance at, we don't have to put up a whole bulletproof wall of steel cage for the women. You know, no, you just get in the back, because where did they pray at during the time the Prophet said something? Where were the women at? Right in the back. What did he say the worst rank for the woman was? The first one. What was the worst rank for the man was? The last one. So what does that encourage you to do? Get to the masjid, get in the front rank first. Try to get there first. The Prophet said something, even used to put the children in between the women and the men. They used to form the rank in between the women and men. So therefore, it goes to show you, we don't need that big wall. But that's one of the things. People come in, where the women be at? Right back there. Why you don't put the women like in a build a wall? We need a wall. You know, not that I wouldn't consider these things. That's not what I'm saying. But it's just like, you're going to make it like as if we're not official unless we got a wall. No. Every woman that come in here be dressed properly. We get a few here and there. Ain't what Trump said. We get a few here and there. McCarthy, stop. You get a few here and there that's not dressed, you know, properly. But guess what? All the other sisters, some of the other sisters back there, she kind of like fades and blends. You don't really pay her no mind. You see what I'm saying? So, but anyway, that's a whole nother discussion. So, what we want to talk about is the objective of writing this is to basically learn our position on the subject of the Mawlid. And in today's era, the Mawlid is used as a means, an unjustified distinguishing characteristic of how Sunni you are. And we talked about this early on. People judge you on whether you're Sunni or not by you saying that, yes, I practice the Mawlid, right? And so it says, or if you're a follower of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. May Allah Ta'ala protect us from from foolish ideas like this. I mean, we also seek to give a clear understanding and restore the confidence of the Jama'at to not to feel ashamed or even guilty for not participating in the festivities centered around the Mawlid while standing firm on the minhaj of the Shaykh. Now, festivities, we're talking about blameworthy festivities. Like I said, there's a big difference between commemorating and celebrating. I don't think we know how to draw that line. And then we also judge things based off of what other people do. We're kind of like a monkey see, monkey do type people. So when you see people like, you know, in places like, you know, Iraq, Pakistan, having, you know, big parties and they jumping around and, you know, got cakes and, Ya Rasulullah, you know, and all that stuff, you know, we tend to have, you know, we start to feel like, you know, we ain't turning up enough. We need to have more Mawlids, you know. And then you get that feel good because everybody's together, right? You know, I tell you, I grew up in the church. So you used to have that what they call like a revival, right? Everybody would get together. Everybody went to church, no. Yo, that's where you get all the girls at, right? So what happened? Food, everything. They be church partying all day long. It was church all day. Prior to that revival, everybody was kind of like down, you know. So those festivities boost the hymn of the people. It boosts their enthusiasm, right? So some people be feeling, dudes that go to Mawlid, they'll take off of work for Mawlid, but they'll work through Juma. You see what I'm saying? Then they go to Mawlid. These people who usually work through Juma, they usually like, man, ain't no real brotherhood anyway. They use it as a means to justify why they don't go to Juma. Why they don't participate in the masjid. Why they don't do this. You know, like you get people that go to the masjid and something happened in the masjid. This is why I don't go to the masjid now. Exactly why. See, as soon as I step foot back in here, and Shaitan got you deluded, and you think because you stepped in there, Allah exposed the people to you so you can stay further away from them. Allah might be doing us a favor by keeping you the hell out of here. You might be nothing but trouble. Because the person that's isolated is usually the most fitna. The person who talks about fitna is usually the fitna box himself. I don't do fitna. Let me tell you about fitna. And I don't do fitna. And who be behind? There was this one sister I know. She used to always quote that ayat in Baqarah. Fitna is worse than bloodshed. And she was like the hellraiser. Her name was mixed in everything. So, you know, those kind of people, they stay away. But these people that I'm talking about, they usually go to the Mawlid. It feels good. Everybody jumping around. Allahu, Allahu, sallallahu. He's feeling good, right? I've been to a Mawlid here in the city. And when I went that one time, first of all, two things happened. My ex-wife grinded me up with the Shehu. She used to go to Germantown. So I used to be having her reading the Ihya until she became Sunni, right? So she grinded me up for going to the joint. The second is, me and my Sahaba here was like, oh, hell no, never again, right? We ain't never doing that again. The problem is, it felt like you walking in Club Onyx. That's what it felt like. That's what it felt like. It wasn't even about some of the things they were doing, which was bid'ah in itself. It just felt like we was in Onyx. I ain't seen women wear pants that tight. You ever notice when Muslims do stuff, they do the worst thing? They're the worst at it. Like, the Kafirs, they be like, yo, I wear my tight clothes, whatever. And then be the Muslimah that got the worst. She, like, cleavage out all the way to the point where you start seeing the beginning lines of the nipples and stuff. You be like, yo, sis, what are you doing? Right? Then kind of find out and her name be Amina, Amina Johnson, Muhammad, Claire. You be like, yo, what happened? Kafirs, they just fade to the back like they ain't never had nothing to do. They just as bad. So the festivities surrounded by the Mawlid is what makes it even a problem. And some people take the approach of a Sadr al-Dara'i approach. We cutting off the means to evil, right? Like, look, we ain't even gonna do it because we already see what it leads to. Some people are taking that. I'm telling you, the people of knowledge, sometimes they don't speak, they just act. And they'll walk away from stuff. Like Imam Malik. Imam Malik wasn't reactionary. He just walk off on you. He'll say what he say, I'm out. Yeah, that's majesty. That's a majestic person. He said what he said, I'm out. I ain't got nothing else to say. Like when he kicked the man out that asked about istiwa. He's like, man, you're an innovator. Get him out of here.
Some people say that Mawlid would lead to people, celebrating the birth of Jesus.
Oh, I seen it. Last year, was it last year or the year before? Atlanta, Georgia. In Atlanta, all weird stuff goes down in Atlanta. I don't care if Atlanta people don't like that. Some of the weirdest stuff goes down in Atlanta. Remember that year that Romeo Owl was in December? Around Christmas time? They had a Mawlid. They said we celebrated Nabi Muhammad and Isa ibn Maryam.
Because they principle is, well,
we honor all the prophets.
We honor all the prophets, so we don't celebrate his birthday too.
One fundamental question I will have to ask that Muslim, or that brother supposed to be Muslim. One fundamental question. Why do you believe that Jesus was born in December? When the Christians themselves argue about that.
Yeah. You don't even know.
So how in the heck did this? It's a money thing, bro. I'm telling you, it's a money thing. It's a money thing, and it's also used as a characteristic to signify that you're not extreme in your Islam. So anyway, so the first thing I want to mention is what is the definition of sunnah and bid'ah, right? Because one of the things I found from the argument about the Mawlid was people were ready to fist fight when you call it an innovation. You call it a bid'ah because it actually is. So now most people, now what happens is the other side of the field, the Salafis, they're so black and white. Bid'ah is all going to hell, ain't no good in it. It ain't got nothing to do with fiqh, nothing like that. And they say the Prophet ﷺ said, Kuli bid'atin dalala or kuli dalalatin finnar. Right? These are the words of the Prophet ﷺ. But we do know when we learn from the ahkamul khamsa, the 5 principles, if it's not done, and this is little. As a matter of fact, I'm not even going to spend a lot of time on it because the Shaykh who's going to mention this. All right, I'm not even going to go into. I'm going to stop myself. The Shaykh who mentions a lot of this stuff. So it's that one of the things that has to be understood is what is sunnah and what is bid'ah. Our approach towards the subject has been restricted to our ulama in their definition. So we're not taking from all over the place. We're keeping it in-house. It's strictly jama'ah. Because if you're on a particular minhaj, then you stick with your minhaj, and if something agrees with that, then you can use that as reinforcement, right? Which you find in all of the books of the Shaykh. Sometimes he quotes from some scholars that are Shafi'i. It reinforces the point that he's trying to make, right? So anyway, so we turn to Shaykh Uthman for the definition of sunnah. As he says, the sunnah with regards to worship, ibadah, because he says in his Ihya Sunnah that sunnah is 2 things. It's linguistic. It's a linguistic definition. It's 2 things. It's adat, customs. No, 3 things. I'm sorry. Adat, customs, ibadah, worship, and adillah, proofs. 3 things, right? Now this, y'all should be making mental notes, taking notes, and things like this. Why? Because these are principles. These are principles that we're mentioning. So he says, with regards to worship, There are the nafil acts which the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam practiced constantly, and it was understood by it that it was to be done continuously, even if it was not recurrent, like the eclipse prayer. And some of the Sahabas added that it was done publicly to understand that it was be able to be done in Jama'ah. Now, Taraweeh prayer. How do we know Taraweeh prayer is a sunnah? Because the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam did it for 3 days. He gathered the people together, right? And this is what Umar uses as proof. This is where the statement of this is a good innovation came from. He gathered the people together, put them behind one imam, and they prayed together, right? And he said, "Hada bid'atul hasana." Some say that he said is a bid'atul nafi, a beneficial bid'ah. Some narrators said hasana, like it's a good innovation. Whatever the case is, we know exactly what he's meaning, right? Somebody that has like a second grade reading level, they might not be able to comprehend that. What do you mean innovation? All innovations are bad and they all going to hell. There's no scholarship behind that, right? They're literalists and they're literal in their approach. So the Shaykh goes on and says, with regards to proof, what is meant here is everything which proceeds from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, other than the Quran, is pertaining words, the deeds, and the decisions, in its accordance with the meaning and realized. And this is how, the Muhakkikun, they explained it. In the Minhaj Muntakhib, it says that which Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the master of mankind, was silent about, his words, his deeds, which were done always, and that in which he made a decision, that is sunnah. So there's two definitions here of what sunnah with regards to proof. Words, deeds, and decisions. That's the first definition. The second definition is words, deeds, that were always done, and that in which he made a decision, that is sunnah. Oh, and his silence. I'm sorry, that's the fourth one. His silence to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He said, what is the Sheikh's definition of bid'ah? Shaykh Uthman Dan Fodiyo definition of bid'ah is a definition. He mentions various statements, but each statement is identical. He mentions about 3 if you want to get a specific number. The first one he mentions from Abu Hassan al-Saghir, right? He says, it is that which deviates from the book, the sunnah, and the ijma. All right? What's the definition of bid'ah? That which deviates from the book, the sunnah, and the ijma. All right? That's first one. Second one, Imam Faqihani said, he said, strictly speaking, it is invented matters in the deen which appear as though it's from the deen, and it is not actually, in actuality, it's not from the deen. All bid'ah, it doesn't look like it's not from anything other than Islam. I haven't seen nobody. When you look at somebody that's dancing, doing the disco lila, he's dancing. When he's jumping and dancing, what is he dancing to? He's usually dancing to somebody, doing the hadra, Allah, right? And then there's another group, Allah, Allah, right? So he just starts dancing like Bismillah. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Bid'ah. You see? It looks like it's from the deen. They saying Allah's name because that's how we judge it. Right? Somebody with the name Muhammad, you be like, he must be Muslim. That's how Americans do. You must be Muslim, man. Your daddy Muslim or something like that. Why you name Muhammad, man? I actually work with a brother. His name is Abdul Rahim. He's not Muslim in the least.
My brother's name Ahmed.
Exactly. See, you see what I'm saying? You be like, somebody gotta be Muslim in your family, right? No, not really. No. So names don't make you Muslim per se. So the third statement, he mentions Ahmed Zarruq, he mentions in his Umdat Murid al-Sadiq. He said the reality of innovation, according to the Sharia, are invented matters in the deen that resembles the deen and it looks like it's from it, but are in actual reality not from it. And this is regardless if the resemblance to the deen is by surah, bil surah, meaning by form, meaning it looks like it, or bil haqiqah, in its meaning, its definition. So you have to understand, if you understand what sunnah is, and understand what innovation is, then understanding what people are doing in this time in the name of the Mawlid, you know not to practice it. You're like, cool. Or any matter, for any subject for that matter, right? So he says, he gives a next chapter on avoiding innovation, right? He said it was mentioned that in avoiding innovation is because following. As for the proofs of avoiding avoiding innovation, he says, realize, may Allah make you and us successful, that the proofs of the obligation of avoiding innovation are the same proofs for the following of the sunnah. And this is because because the ordering of a thing in effects prohibits its opposite. That's what will suffice is the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran where Allah says, أن هذا صراطي مستقيما فاتبعوه ولا تتبعوا سبول فتفرق بكم عن سبيله ذلكم وصاكم به لعلكم تتقون. And Allah Ta'ala, He says in the Quran, is actually in Surah An'am, ayah 153, if that's, if you're trying to follow, where it's from. He says, this is my straight path. أَنَّ هَذَا الصِّرَاطِ مُسْتَقِيمًا. This is my straight path. فَاتَّبِعُهُ. So follow it, right? And He says, وَلَا تَتَّبِعُوا سُبُولَ فَتَفَرَّقَ بِكُمْ عَنْ سَبِيلِهِ. And don't follow other ways, like ways that break off. تَتَفَرَّقَ. Right? Those divergent ways, they take you off your path. Don't follow that. Right? This is the ayat in the Quran. And then Allah says, ذَلِكُمْ وَصَّاكُمْ بِهِ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. And if you do follow that, it'll make you part way from His way. Right? So this is why you're supposed to avoid bid'ah. Alright? So Ibn Mas'ud radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he explained this ayat. He said the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam one day drew a line in front of us. And He then drew some lines on the right of us and some on the left of us. And then He said, this is my path and these are the divergent ways. And upon everyone else's these ways, there's a devil at the end of each one who calls them to it. And He said, I believe He said from amongst mankind. And He meant by that from the people from Ahlul Bid'ah, the people of innovation. And then He recited the ayat that we just mentioned. That this is my straight path, meaning the single line. Meaning that single line is the straight path. So follow it and do not follow other ways. Meaning the lines on the left or the right, at least you'll be parted from His way. So when you follow anything other than that, or Prophet say something, you leave His sunnah. All right? So then the Shaykh, he said, he goes on and he mentions about the divisions of innovation, the ahkam bid'ah, right? Imam Qarafi, he says that there's 5 divisions to innovation, all right? The first one is wajib, is a bid'ah wajib. He says it encompasses the fundamentals of the principles of the obligation, and it takes its roots from the Sharia, like putting the Quran in a book form. Because everybody knows how the Quran was revealed. Was it in a book? No, it didn't come down like a closed book, pages like you got 2 covers and pages in the middle. No, people were writing as it was being revealed, writing it, preserving it from memory, and so on and so forth. It's a beautiful history. But when you learn how the Quran came about as compilation, you be like, subhanallah, right? It make you grow more respect and love for the Sahabas. But when you don't know that, then you kind of disregard them like, no, they witnessed the Quran being revealed. So anyway, so he said recording the Quran or the principles of the Sharia out of the fear that it'd be lost. And this is what happened. This is what Imam Shafi'i did in his book called the Risala. He codified and wrote down the principles of Imam Malik, because Shafi'i was a student of Malik. And so he wrote down these principles in order to codify them, right? And to convey what was the principles of Malik. So anyway, and Malik wrote the Muwatta to preserve what the people of Medina were doing. That's what the Muwatta is. The Muwatta is the Kitabu Amal Ahl Medina, right? So anyway, he says the second one is haram, right? The second one is haram, and it is that which encompasses the fundamental principles of the prohibition, and it takes its proofs from the Sharia, like taxes. Right? It's haram to tax people, except for those taxes that are given by the Sharia. Right? One is zakat, the other one is jizya. Right? With a kuffar that resides under the Muslims' control. They actually call dhimmi. They're protected. This, which is amazing, because this right now in this day and age, you ever heard Muslims say that we don't fight those disbelievers who we got a treaty with, and we have a treaty with the disbelievers? You remember when the Muslims were robbing banks real heavy and they were wearing niqabs, and the Imam of Germantown gave the khutbah and said that we have a treaty with the kuffar in America? Yeah. He said that. And he used that and he said, you're not supposed to harm the disbelievers. Yeah. He exaggerated that. We don't have no treaty here in America. We don't even have one single leadership. Most of the leaders don't even care about nobody but themselves and their wives. All right? We don't have that. There's no treaty there. There's none of that. So unless he's talking about when he gave Bay'ah and embracing the Constitution and the laws under it, where they accepted his black behind as 3/5 of a human being, I don't know what the heck he's talking about. But they promote that this is the treaty. They promote that, right? So anyway, so he says, giving preference of those who are ignorant over those who are scholars. People do that. Oh, this is brother Ahmed and Rafiq who own a liquor store in West Philly. They are part of the board members. Meanwhile, the Imam, he's so evil because he's always calling people to the Sunnah. We must fire him quickly. It's Islam 2018, boy. I tell you, that's all I can say. But anywho, he said, appointing a post to somebody who's not suitable for them is also haram. Especially by means of inheritance. I may have a son that's a straight fasik, but I make him the imam because he's my son. It's haram, right? So he says, making support for the fact that it was a place of his father. Oh, that's disqualifying what I just said. It said while he himself is not qualified for that. The third thing is called that which is mandub, which is sunnah, or strongly encouraged. He said that this also has its fundamentals and recommendations. See, the language changed a little bit. The other two said obligations and its proofs in the Sharia. This one says the recommendations, and it takes its proof from the Sharia. Like Tawawiyah prayer. All right? It's an established sunnah, but it's not wajib. That doesn't mean to abandon it, because when we hear sunnah, we be like, oh, just leave it. And this also probably helps with the psychological damage on, well, I won't pray Tawawiyah, but we'll go to the Mawlid. You see what I'm saying? Most people do practice Mawlid out of guilt. I'm talking about Americans. I can't, generalize that, but most people practice Mawlid out of guilt. They feeling guilty because they've been negligent in the sunnah. So anyway, he said, passing, and those who possess authority, although they were contrary to what the companions, may Allah be pleased with them, did. The reason for this is that, you all right, man? You gonna hog up all the heat? Oh, all right. Yeah, exactly. So he says the reason for that being is that the aim and the welfare of the deen cannot occur except by establishing the preeminence of government in the hearts of the people, and people during the time of the companions of the Prophet ﷺ. Now, this is something that's important, because I'll tell you this. As he started to decline after Imam Jamil got locked up, and a lot of the Muslim leaders who had national jamaats were starting to kind of die out, you ever notice there was a push where people were like, you don't have to have bay'ah to nobody. Your bay'ah is to Allah and His Messenger. And what happened to those people? They just remain isolated, and just fall apart. But here the Shaykh is saying that you have to push this. You have to push this because it has to permeate the people's heart. Why do you think we always talk about the Amal Ahl Medina? We accept other people can follow other positions, but we got to have that in our heart first. That's why I say we got to champion our own cause before we go champion everybody else. The Mawlid fight ain't our fight, but we'll be dedicated to it. You see what I'm saying? That's why I stepped out of the boxing arena of Ahl Sunnah versus Salafis. It really wasn't getting us nowhere. You know what I'm saying? The truth is the truth. We put the truth out there, but I'm not going to stand there and keep going toe-to-toe with everybody. You know what? I got plenty of younger brothers that's learning, that knows that. Y'all go ahead and argue with the anthropomorphists. While I prepare for classes for other things to get you prepared to take them out even further, like the Hadith Jariyah. I'm putting something together now on that. Y'all really going to be able to really deal with them. They start asking you, ain't no lie, you're going to make them feel about this big by the time you're done with them, right? So, but anyway, you have to put that thing and establish it in the heart of the people, right? You have to establish that love for something or someone in the heart of the people. That's how people started becoming Salafi. That's how people started becoming Sufi, right? The Sufis, they make you love the Shaykh to the point that you kiss the Shaykh in your sleep. I love the Shaykh, man. I seen him, right? You can talk about a person until they real. I used to love I never met my grandfather a day in my life, right? My grandfather on my mother's side. But my grandmother talked about him so much, you would have thought I grew up in the house with him. That's how much she used to talk about him. So when you talk about the Prophet ﷺ, you talk about the Salaf like that, you talk about Imam Malik like that, you talk about the Shaykh like that, you begin to grow a love for them. And so the same thing, the corrupt Sufis, they make you have a love and a passion for the Shaykh like that, almost to the point where you'll disobey the Rasulullah ﷺ. All right? Then on the flip side, you got the Salafiyah, the same thing. They make you love Ibn Taymiyyah to the point that when you hear the word Shaykh al-Islam, there was other people who were called Shaykh al-Islam. Ibn Haythami was called Shaykh al-Islam, right? You know, huh?
It's just a title.
It's just a title, meaning that you reached a certain level in knowledge, right? But a lot of those titles too need to be abandoned in this time period, especially in this, in this practice, because we're more concerned about living up to those titles than actually be able to practice, Islam. In most minds, most people, like when you read Muhammad Abdul Wahhab's books, you're ready to grab the sword and go kill Sufis, right? That's just how you feel. They be like, yo, he revolutionary. You be ready to knock him off. Like, yo, you need to cut his head off. Cut the head off the one who does tawassul. That's how you feel. You be like, man, what? I'll pull the sword on you suckers, man. What you crazy? Dudes we've been growing up around guns. Everybody got swords now. And I understand you buy the sword out of the love for the sunnah. Don't get me wrong. I have a sword, a machete, bow. I want a bow and arrow. I like to see how that works. Right? Like some old medieval boy. But truth of the matter is, you're doing these things out of love for the sunnah and the Prophet sallallahu, right? But dudes be ready. They take and mix and put the oil inside the water, and you see the oil stand on top of it. That's what all these other deviant groups remind me of. It's just water sitting on top. Oil sitting on top of water. So anyway, they keep going. So he says, so emphasize the outward appearance of something becomes incumbent. Why do you think people talk about wearing thobes, wearing garbs? We got to the point now that most of our Muslim women look like Kafirs. They got on baseball caps, hoodies, tight pants, tight clothes, no beard, and then they got a woman in full black draped down to her feet and walking around with her. Back in the day, we used to run up on dudes that we seen with a Muslim thinking he was a Kafir, like, yo, what you doing with our sister, bro? Now you run up on him like, man, that's my wife, huh? I'm like, oh, man. You see what I'm saying? Times has changed because we love the way of the kuffar. And what do? The opposite. You ain't got to wear that stuff. You don't need to grow your beard. You ain't got to do this. They advocate it to the point where it becomes incumbent upon them, and you do the opposite. So we must advocate at all times for the sunnah, halal, knowledge. You know what I'm saying? The Amal Medina, you have to advocate for it. You got to be a soldier. There's no such thing as like a sideline Muslim. That's right, Wakanda forever, baby. So anyway, you have the makruh, those things that are detestable. And that encompasses the fundamentals of the Sharia, of the things that are reprehensible. And it takes his proofs from the Sharia. He said, like specifying certain days for blessings and other certain kinds of worship. Now, honestly, Mawlid would fall under this category right here. So he says, from this category is increased in the fixed number of recommended acts. And the example he gives, like for the dua, after you finish doing the salat. And that's also another thing too. Don't fall into that argument with Wahhabis about using sibha. Because firstly, truth of the matter is, we don't use the sibha to do the 33, 33, 33. It's for your awrad. It's not for that. You use your hand for that. Because that's what the sunnah promotes, right? I hate the fact that a Wahhabi would take that, use the sound bite, and even deviant Khalil Abdullahi says that you should use your hand for dhikr. Nah, bro, that's not what it's for, all right? That's not what we talking about, all right? So I just want to make sure that sound bite is clear. Hopefully YouTube don't remove this video and this junk will remain forever. You all are witnessing what I just said, right? So, but anyway, he says a person... This is makruh. This is an example of something that's makruh. How many times are you supposed to say subhanallah?
33.
All right. How many times are you supposed to say alhamdulillah?
33.
How many times are you supposed to say Allahu Akbar?
33.
Okay, he said you say this at the end of every wajib prayer, right? He said then this person, he goes and does more than that limit, which was established by the Prophet ﷺ. He said this is makruh because of what is in it regarding going beyond what the Prophet ﷺ prescribed and showing lack of adab towards Rasulullah ﷺ. So instead of doing 33, he like, man, I got the energy. I'll do 1,000 after every salah. 1,000 alhamdulillah, 1,000 subhanallah, 1,000 la ilaha illallah. I'm going to do 1,000.
After he do his regular one, right?
No, he's doing that, saying that it's better to do this. That's what he's saying. This is makruh. He's taking something from the Prophet ﷺ and doing that. This isn't like a person that put together an awrad, right? And understand this. The awrad may be compiled and put together by the sheikh, but if he's basing it based off of hadiths or ayahs and things of that nature, it's something that's derived from the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? So like for instance with our weird, right? The Qadri weird is 160 and then 6, right? Or say la ilaha illallah, right? We also got another weird where you say 100 la ilaha illallah, 100 istighfar, 100 prayer on the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. All of them have their roots in the Sharia. All of them. So that's not that kind. If you think like, oh, I ain't gonna do that because the sheikh put that together, then you don't really understand. You don't understand what's going on. Right? You missing the boat. The boat is sailing on you. All right. So, but anyway, he says the condition of holding something in importance is when a thing is prescribed to stop with it, while to revert to leaving its limits is, he says, qilatuhu adab. He said is lack of adab when you exceed, when you exceed in that. So then the last thing he mentions is something that is mubah, something that is permitted. And it encompasses, it takes its fundamentals, principles of permissibility, and it takes some proofs from the Sharia, like utilizing agricultural tools, right? Things for improving your livelihood, wearing nice clothes, adapting nice homes, and other things like that, using a microphone, right? These are the kind of arguments that fools get in arguments about. Well, if, doing Mawlid is a bit out, then you might as well just get rid of your cell phone. I actually seen somebody say that too. You might as well just go ahead and throw your cell phone away, because that's a bit out too.
The Sahaba and use Facebook.
Right.
I'm just saying.
You see, you understand now? You have to understand bid'ah in order to understand why we take the position that we take. Now, some of this stuff I'm going to go ahead and, I'm going to speed up a little bit for the sake of time. And I'm going to talk about, because I'm going to give everybody this that I put together. I compiled this topic. So the Shaykh's position on bid'atul makruh. This is something that needs to be understood. Because American Muslims today, we believe that something that's makruh, it's cool for us to do it. Like, yo, that's makruh, alhamdulillah, shukran. we don't. Makruh is a form of prohibition, and mustahab or mandub or sunnah is a form of permissibility. You have to understand that. Both of them take their roots from the Sharia. If you leave something that is makruh, you will receive reward for it. If you leave an action that is makruh, you'll receive a reward for it. Now think about the Sunnis. Like, well, the Shaykh who only said is makruh. It's only makruh to practice the Mawlid. Bro, to leave it, you get reward for it. You get thawab. Think about it. That's what you're saying. A bid'atul makruh, if you leave it, you get reward for not practicing that. You adhere to what was more safer and sounder. So Allah will reward you for that. When something is sunnah, you get reward for it. Right? But leaving something that's sunnah doesn't give you a sin necessarily. All right? It's all up on one's intention. So anyway, so the Shaykh, he says, if you were to say, how can a bid'atul makruh, a reprehensible innovation, be a dalala, be an error, when reprehensible action from one respect is jaiz, permissible, right? There's permission in it because some people may practice a thing that is considered makruh. Like for instance, in our madhab, crossing our arms in the obligatory prayer is makruh. While practicing in other madhabs, for them is mubah or mandub, right? We go based on that. You can't have you can't have two truths. There's only one truth, as Imam Malik said. There's only one truth. There's certain actions that a person do that is accepted because of the way that the Sahaba, different Sahabas, practicing because they learn things differently from the Prophet, right? The different Qira'ah of Quran. You have, 7 recitations that are tawatir, or 10 recitations that are tawatir? I forgot. But anyway, whatever the case is, there's 7 that's definite, 3 that is okay, and 4 that is makruh. You can't even use it. All right? With regards to the Quran. So what happens if a person has one narration that's different from this? This is where fiqh solves that problem, right? Because if we take every hadith and try to apply every hadith, we'll be making wudu after eating meat. Pause. Right? After eating, eating animal meat. Pause again. Anyway, so I was just joking, Anyway, so he says, I say that in the Shaykh, he says, I say what Ahmed Zarruq says in his Umdat Sadiq. He says it is permissible to do reprehensible. It's possible to do a reprehensible deed, meaning something that is makruh, while inventing it is forbidden. You hear the hukum? It's possible to do a thing because you might have been taught that by somebody. Like, yo, no, you pray with your right hand over your left, and then later on you learn that it's makruh, so you leave it, right? But he said it's forbidden, while inventing it is forbidden because it amounts to making legal decisions against the decision of the Prophet ﷺ and going beyond what he has established. Now, remember that principle. We've been talking about this Mawlid the whole time. It doesn't have its foundation with Allah and His Messenger or the Sahaba. This is why the Shaykh has taken the position he's taken, which I'm about to mention it now. So Shaykh Uthman Dan Fodiyo, he says, if you were to say what is the legal judgment concerning what the people do during the month of Rabiul Awwal on the day of the Prophet ﷺ's birth, or on the 7th day of the Mawlid, where people gather together for dhikr and food, which is prepared for the purpose. Okay, now we're talking about people just getting together for dhikr and food. What's bad about that? You wouldn't consider anything bad. But why do they say not to do things that are makruh? Because it didn't come from the Prophet ﷺ. Right? So he says, I say that this is a reprehensible, this is a bid'ah makruh, if it is free from any form of ma'asiyah, free from any form of disobedience. He said, it is said that the answer is that the practice of the Mawlid of the Prophet ﷺ is a highly recommended good bid'ah hasana, manduba, when it's free from every disobedience. As for what the people have made a habit in these times, where men and women mix freely. Now, one of the things you got to understand about the Shaykh will give you the opposing opinion. He'll give you the opposing opinion, right? So he says, as for what the people have made a habit in these times, where men and women that mix freely, Allah forbid that any scholar will make that permissible, right? So that goes to show you his approach towards things. Then he says, it says in the Amerikkkan, generally what the people have invented from the innovation is their false belief. Now, what he's saying is their false belief that the acts of worship, akbaratul ibadah, they believe that this is a great act of worship to perform or practice, and partake and put together a Mawlid. He said that they believe this. He says that, and they believe that it's manifesting the rights of Islam is what they do during the month of Rabiul Awwal from the Mawlid of the Prophet ﷺ. He says this has been included among bid'ah innovations, but not just any innovation. He says bid'atu muharrama. It's a haram innovation. For you to believe that practicing in the Mawlid, doing a Mawlid, is a great act of ibadah. Because you're taking something that is makruh and making it an act of worship. Which we talked about the 33, 33, 33, right? You say, nah, we ain't gonna do 33, 33, 33. We're gonna do 50, 50, 50. Right? What did you do? You went and exceeded the limits that the Prophet ﷺ put down. He then continued. He said, it is necessary that when the noble month comes around, that it be honored and ennobled in respect with its deserving respect. This is by the following of the Prophet ﷺ, and that he used to single out times by blessing, increasing, performing acts of righteousness and generosity. Some of the months that are known is the month of Rajab. Another month that's known, the Sha'ban, right? These months were known for that. Shawwal, whoever fasted, 6 days starting from the month of Shawwal, he'll be written down as a person all year round. But who's the one that's telling you to do these good actions? Who told you to do the Mawlid? See my point? See my point? So then he says, if you were to say, what is the legal judgment concerning the Mawlid for those who prepare food only on the day of the Mawlid? Understand the key words, only on the day of the Mawlid, right? Or during that month. You know how people do it. Most people do these festivities only for Rabi al-Awwal. See, there's no problem you do it every day. That's why what Muhammad was talking about earlier, he said, you know, how he acknowledges Mawlid by doing it every day. And, you know, when he's saying that, he's not having a party. Y'all know Muhammad ain't having no party. If he had a party, he probably invited us first, right? But what he's saying is doing things like reading, you know, reading about the Prophet ﷺ, sitting certain salawat on the Prophet ﷺ. That's why every Thursday when we do the Dala'il, he considers that a Mawlid, right? We do the Dala'il because it's 19 Adhkar. The Prophet ﷺ said, whoever gives salawat on me on Friday, I return it back to him. This is why Thursday night, our nights precede the day. Thursday after Maghrib, Muhammad reads the Dala'il. We listen. We don't do group dhikr. We're not doing it in unison. We listen, and everybody after he finished one of those salawat, we say sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Nothing wrong with that, right? Now, so he goes on. He says about the person who has, you know, only on the day of the Mawlid, and he attends by this the recognition of the Mawlid, and he invites his Muslim brothers to eat along with him, being free of any kind of disobedience. The Shaykh who says, I say, this is also makruh, right? But he does say this. He says there is also some who say that it's permissible, right? Then he says the latter is the preferred position. That meaning that's the mukhtar position, the preferred position for some people. Because there's nothing wrong with enjoying food with your brothers, reciting, you know what I'm saying, discussing, you know, having talks about mas'ala, going over issues of fiqh and so on and so forth, right? Now, he says the former decision, meaning the position of saying that it's makruh, he said this was a position by Imam Ibn al-Hajj in his Amerikkkan. He said because he said if food is prepared only and one intends by that to recognize the Mawlid and his Muslim brothers are invited, even when it's free of every kind of disobedience, he said it's still a bid'ah because it's only the intentions of it is only to get together to celebrate the Mawlid. All right? So you see, you got to understand our position. Most people, when they read, they go to the Iqya, they be like, hey, the Shaykh said it's makruh, so it's cool. He's just relaying the other opinions. His position is it's makruh, we don't do it. We should avoid it. But if we don't look at makruh as a form of prohibition, guess what we're going to do? We're going to do it in makruh. We do anything that's makruh. Yeah, all right, cool, man, no big deal. Right? So he says this is because making an increase in the religion, in the deen, is not among the people, the behavior of the Salaf. Is what he says. Not from amongst the amal of the Ahl Salaf. It's not from the behavior of the Salaf. Okay? So we are not Salafi. It's disrespectful to refer to us as Wahhabi Malikis because we don't have big mawlids and drink tea and sing and dance. All right? It's problematic for us. So I'm closing. I'm going to stop here. Inshallah, the writing is much longer than this. It's probably about like 20, 30 pages maybe. Inshallah. So I just want to close and leave you on this last note, which I titled, What If the Salaf Didn't Do It? And there's a reason why I put it like this, because a lot of times when we say that this wasn't a practice of the Salaf, we kind of like, so? And? Like, so what? Salaf didn't do a lot of things, you know. They didn't have vaccinations. They didn't have toothbrushes. Yeah. They had mouthwash like we had. You know, we start doing stupid stuff like that. You know, and it's really ridiculing and making mockery of their, you know, their blessed status that Allah Ta'ala has given them. And the Prophet said something. So he said, if you were to say, if there's something which draws its proof from the Sharia but is not utilized by the Salaf, is it an innovation or is it a sunnah? Imam Ahmed Zarruq, the Shaykh, who he says, I say that Ahmed Zarruq said in his Umdat Sadiq, he quotes Imam Malik. He said, Imam Malik said, it is considered a bid'ah, an innovation, because they did not leave it, meaning their practice, because of an order, except for because of an order for them to leave it. He said they were the most desirous of people for doing good deeds and the most knowledgeable people concerning the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So this is why the Shaykh has said that is considered an innovation, because he's taking a position of Imam Malik. And then he quotes an incident that took place in the presence of Ibn Mas'ud radiallahu ta'ala anhu. He said that he seen a group of people. He seen a group of people. He saw them doing dhikr in a group, in a jama'ah. He said, by Allah, you have come with a dark innovation, right? They said, and he said to them, do you all think that you have superseded the companions of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in knowledge? So this is, this is why we take the position that we avoid those things that we didn't find that there was a practice of the Amal of Medina, nor any of the Sahaba, the Salaf of them practicing that themselves. So with that, inshallah, we'll stop there. I apologize for holding y'all so long. I held y'all hostage. The hostage, the takeover is over. You can have your hearts and minds back. Inshallah. May Allah Ta'ala bless us to keep us on that path of the Son of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So, we're not doing this just to be in opposition in order to argue or, call people to our way, but we just want to follow that path of the Salaf and the way of the people of Medina. Subhanaka Allahumma bihamdik wa shadu an la ilaha illa anta wa astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.